When people hear about Iran's hostility toward the United States, the common reaction is, well, they've always hated us. But that's not the full story. The deeper question is what causes entire nations to lose trust over generations? What leads a group of people to turn their back on another country so completely? To understand this, we have to move beyond surface level narratives and look at patterns beneath history. These patterns are not random. They are driven by power, fear, and the desire to control not just land and resources, but consciousness itself. In this video, we're not just going to recount events. We're going to trace the energetic imprint of betrayal, manipulation, and resistance. Because when you see how this pattern repeats, you begin to understand not only the Iran-US relationship, but the deeper story of how empires rise, how they fall, and what this all reveals about our collective evolution. In the early 1950s, Iran stood at a crossroads filled with hope. After years of colonial interference and foreign exploitation, the country began moving toward a new future. Iran was embracing secular democracy, and the people were ready to shape their own destiny. Leading this vision was Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, a popular and principled leader who believed in national sovereignty and reform. Mossadegh made a powerful decision. He nationalized Iran's oil industry, aiming to return the wealth of the land to the people who lived on it. For Iranians, this wasn't just about money. It represented dignity, freedom, and the right to self-determination. They were tired of seeing their resources extracted for the benefit of foreign corporations while they remained in poverty. This action created immediate backlash from Western powers. Britain and the United States saw their control slipping away. Mossadegh's decision disrupted a global pattern where wealthy nations quietly extracted resources from less powerful ones, maintaining control through economic manipulation and political influence. Iran's democratic path was beginning to show what a self-directed, sovereign nation could look like. For a moment, the future felt open, but that vision was soon interrupted by outside forces that were not ready to let go of their grip. What followed would set the stage for decades of mistrust, conflict, and resistance. In 1953, something devastating unfolded behind closed doors. The United States and British governments, through their intelligence agencies, launched a secret operation known as Operation Ajax. Their goal was simple: remove Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh and restore control over Iran's oil and direction. But the method was anything but simple. They didn't invade with tanks. Instead, they used manipulation. They paid street mobs to riot and create chaos. They bribed Iranian officials to turn against their own people. They planted news stories to distort public opinion and frame Mossadegh as unstable and dangerous. The entire nation was pushed into confusion and fear with outside hands pulling the strings. So this wasn't only a coup in the political sense, but a message, a signal to the world that self-determination would be allowed only when it aligned with the desires of global powers. Any nation that tried to choose its own path, especially if it involved protecting its natural resources, would be destabilized from within. The consequences ran deeper than politics. Iran experienced a collective wound, betrayal, humiliation, and the collapse of a dream. Trust in democratic process faded. A sovereign people were told they didn't have the right to direct their own future. The trauma of that movement still echoes through generations, shaping the way Iranians view the West and how they define freedom, resistance, and resilience. After the coup, Iran's leadership shifted dramatically. The Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was placed back in power with full support from the United States. He presented himself as a modernizing force, someone who would bring Iran into the future with Western-style progress, development, and prosperity. But beneath the surface, his rule was deeply authoritarian. His government created a powerful secret police force called the Savak. This group was trained with foreign help and became notorious for torture, surveillance, and silencing oppositions. Dissent was no longer a risk, it was a guaranteed sentence. Writers, students, activists, and even religious leaders were imprisoned or disappeared simply for questioning the system. Many Iranians didn't view this as progress. They saw it as a new form of colonization. Instead of boots on the ground, it was control through influence, technology, and fear. The Shah's modernization projects often served the elite and global investors while widening inequality and erasing traditional values. Skyscrapers rose as voices were silenced. This created a deep contradiction. The country looked advanced from the outside, but many people felt spiritually and culturally displaced. Roads and buildings grew, but trust and freedom withered. The pain was not just in the policies, but in the sense of betrayal, watching one's own land serve foreign interests while pretending to wear the mask of independence. That tension built up for decades, and it never truly disappeared. In 1979, the Iranian people rose up. The revolution was a shift in leadership, a change in policies, and most significantly, a collective outcry that had been building for decades. After years of foreign interference, exploitation, and internal repression, the country reached a breaking point. This movement was a reclamation of sovereignty, identity, and voice. The hostage crisis that followed was a message to the world. You ignored our pain, now you will witness it. The anger was real, but so was the heartbreak behind it. To the West, the revolution seemed sudden and irrational, but that reaction revealed a deeper ignorance of the wounds inflicted. What looked like aggression from the outside was, to many Iranians, a long overdue response to betrayal, domination, and silence. In the years after the Iranian Revolution, a new pattern took hold, one shaped by sanctions, unalivements, and endless proxy wars. The message from Western powers was clear. There would be a cost for reclaiming independence. Iran was labeled a threat, an axis of evil, a danger to global order. But these narratives served a deeper purpose. By casting Iran as the villain, governments in the West could justify bloated military budgets, expanded intelligence operations, and tighter control over their own citizens. What happens in other countries outside of the US can have a direct impact on its own people. Fear became the currency of loyalty. If the public stayed afraid, they would continue to support policies that kept power concentrated and questions unasked. And this wasn't just about Iran, though. It was all part of a much larger plan that involved destabilizing and villainizing other countries. Empires need enemies. They thrive on division, on conflict, on having something to fight against. Without a target, the machinery stalls. So new threats are manufactured, old ones are recycled, and the cycle continues, all to keep the illusion of protection alive while the real costs are hidden in plain sight. This story is not unique to Iran. The same pattern has unfolded in country after country. Anytime a nation attempts to reclaim its natural resources or assert its independence, it faces resistance. Not just political resistance, but engineered destabilization, such as coups, economic warfare, and military intervention. Whether it's Latin America, the Middle East, or Africa, the script rarely changes. This is the deeper architecture of empire. It is not a nation with borders, but a global operating system driven by scarcity, control, and the fear of losing dominance. It is not conscious in the way a single leader might plan it. It moves like a collective shadow, repeating itself through institutions, economic systems, and foreign policy agendas. It thrives on the belief that resources are limited, that control must be maintained, and that the world is a battlefield of winners and losers. But what if we looked at empire as not a flag or a nation, but as a state of mind? One that crosses borders and ideologies, living in the systems we have normalized and sometimes even in ourselves. Recognizing this allows us to step outside of the story, to stop reacting and start reflecting. Because once we see the pattern clearly, we are no longer trapped in it. If we want to change the course of geopolitics, we must start by transforming our own consciousness. Political systems are built on patterns of thought, and those patterns begin inside of human beings. This means we cannot expect lasting change in the world if we are still ruled by fear, ego, and illusion in our own personal lives. The first step is to question what we've been told. Much of our understanding of global events is shaped by media that often serves the interests of power. Go beyond the headlines. Study history from multiple perspectives. Listen to voices from other cultures, especially those who have experienced colonization, war, or economic manipulation. Truth often does not scream the loudest. It's often hidden and blocked. Empathy is the gateway to real understanding. Take a moment to imagine how it feels to have your own country's leader overthrown by a foreign power, your culture labeled as dangerous, your economy manipulated through sanctions, and your people painted as enemies. This is the lived reality of millions of people. When we see the world through their eyes, our perspective deepens and our reaction softens. But awareness cannot stop at the global level. We must also look inward and ask where we have given away our own power. Are we allowing systems of control to dominate our thinking, our work, or our relationships? Do we outsource our values to political parties or social trends? Do we chase safety by conforming instead of seeking truth? Real security comes from integrity, not dominance. From knowing who you are and acting in alignment with it. When more people begin to live with that kind of awareness, the structures of control begin to weaken. Empires fall when people wake up, and that awakening begins with each of us right now. Even if we see the problems with Iran's government, that does not mean we should support regime change or collective punishment. Governments and citizens are not the same. The Iranian people have faced decades of sanctions, isolation, and violence, often justified by the flaws of their leaders. But real progress comes from respecting sovereignty and supporting grassroots movements for change, not imposing power from the outside. If we truly care about human rights, we must reject empire in all forms, even when it wears the mask of liberation. The story between Iran and the United States shows what happens when power takes priority over trust and when nations forget the deeper roots of conflict. These cycles of control and retaliation continue when we ignore the patterns behind it. Healing starts with awareness. Cooperation, transparency, and critical thinking are essential if we want something different. If you want to understand how political beliefs and media reflect deeper stages of human development, then watch this video here on using spiral dynamics to become more politically aware. And if you want to learn more about how to see through propaganda, check out this video right here. Thanks for watching.